Hi everyone, this is Mike, and this is my annual E3 video. Can't believe it's that time again, and this year it's going to be a little bit different because the E3 videos are, the E3 conferences are going to be spread out a lot more this year. They're usually all crammed in on Monday, except for Nintendo's, but this year the E3 conferences are starting on Saturday. And they're starting this year with EA. EA are doing their conference on their conference on Saturday, and which I will not. Some of the conferences I will be able to watch live, and some I will not because of work. EA's I will not be able to watch live, and I'll be honest, I'm not really looking forward to EA's that much because of sports, and I pretty much know what EA is going to show. Even though I am looking forward to Battlefront 2. And honestly, Battlefront 2 is the only game I'm looking forward to this fall. But yeah, EA is going to be kicking things off. Next, and then tomorrow we have the conference that I am most looking forward to, and that is Xbox. And that I will not be able to see the beginning of, but I will be able to see the end of, or the second half of, which I am honestly, I kind of wish I could see. That's the one that I wish I could see all of live because of Scorpio. That's where they're going to reveal Scorpio, and I wish they would have done a Scorpio reveal event so that they could save E3 for games, because Microsoft really needs to have games. But yeah, that's the one I'm really looking forward to the most, simply because I'm curious about what Scorpio is going to be. I think it's in Microsoft's best interest at this point to make Scorpio a next-gen system rather than a mid-gen upgrade, because I think that mid-gen upgrades are a bad idea, first off, and also this generation has not been good for Microsoft at all. They've pretty much lost this generation because Don Matrick has cost them the entire generation, unfortunately for them. And this will not only give Microsoft a chance to kill the mid-cycle upgrade idea, which I want. I don't want this idea to become standard. I want this idea to go away, and Microsoft has a chance to kill it, just like Nintendo has done. And it'll give it a chance to, and not only kill the idea but embarrass Sony. I think Sony is in a uncomfortable position right now anyway, regardless of what Microsoft does with the Scorpio in terms of whether this is a next gen console or a mid gen refresh, because Scorpio is so much more powerful than the Pro. But Scorpio is going to be a beast regardless, and I'm very interested to see what's going to happen, because if Sony had done nothing, or if the Pro had been the standard PS4, all Sony had to do, if Sony had simply not put out a mid-gen refresh, if they did not put out the Pro, they could have put out a PS5 next year, and announced it this year. But because they put out the Pro, putting out a PS5 or announcing it now is going to upset people, when it wouldn't have. It wouldn't have if they didn't put out the Pro. You see how the mid-gen cycle updates are a bad idea? You see why I complained about it? There you go. And now Sony might be in trouble, at least when it comes to the multiplats. They still have those great exclusives. Don't get me wrong, Sony's got some amazing exclusives, and coming up, and they still have amazing exclusives available. But you know, the media is complaining about Microsoft not having any games, but they're gonna have the multiplats, if you know, because Sony has put themselves in a corner with the mid-gen upgrade with the Pro. Because right now, Xbox is going to have the best multiplats, because if Sony puts out the PS5 right now, it's going to upset people because they just bought a Pro last year. And it wouldn't have if Sony had simply waited, because it would have been 5 years. And people would have been okay with that. Anyways, yeah, so Xbox is going to be Sunday, and then Bethesda's is going to be later Sunday night, Eastern time. I'm going by Eastern time because that's where I live. I live in Florida, so here we go. Eastern time. I go by Eastern time. You might live in a different time zone, but I'm going to go by Eastern time because of where I live. So yeah, Bethesda's is going to be later that night, and I'm curious, but I'm not too excited, because honestly, when it comes to Bethesda, the only time I get excited is when Bethesda Game Studios puts out a game. And they usually only put out... Bethesda Game Studios usually only puts out either Fallout or Elder Scrolls, and Fallout hasn't been out. Fallout 4 has not been out long enough for the next Elder Scrolls game to be out, because it takes them a long time to put out a game. So expect to see more Bethesda publishing games coming out rather than Bethesda Game Studios. So I'm not too excited. Anyways, next up we get to Mondays, which is going to be the next start kicking things off with the PC, which I'm not too excited, because usually the PC gaming conferences haven't been too great. I mean, the PC last year was better than it was the first year, but the games on the PC side they don't really focus on the multi-plats that much. They usually focus more on the PC exclusives, which don't really excite me all that much, so not too thrilled about that. Then is Ubisoft, and Ubisoft is usually a mixed bag, and they're probably going to have Aisha Tyler come back, you know, because she's been there every year since I've been watching E3. And then, of course, Sony. And Sony's been pretty good about their press conferences as of late. Before, Sony had solid intros and outros and a boring part in the middle, but the last couple of years, Sony stepped it up and kept Sean and Layden to a minimum, which is good. So hopefully Sony will continue to focus on their games and focus on their exclusives, because that's going to be their strong point now. And then finally, Nintendo. And I'm actually excited about Nintendo now, because the Switch has been doing really well, and Nintendo has been focusing on their strong points now. So, but what Nintendo needs to do to keep that momentum going is focus, get those third party going. And here's what Nintendo needs to do, because the Switch is not that powerful. They're not going to get 8th gen multiplats on their system. It's just not going to happen. Here's what you need to do. Get 7th gen games on your system. I don't know how well it's going to sell, but that would get me on board for a Switch. Put Dead Space out. Put Mass Effect out. Put Grand Theft Auto 5 out, or 4 out. Put the Bioshock trilogy out. Put my favorite 7th gen game. Put a lot of my favorite 7th gen games on the Switch, and you would get me on board for sure. That's what Bethesda did with Skyrim. Put Fallout 3 on there as well. Do that. Get me on board with the Switch. That's how you would do it. Because even though your system's not as powerful, if you put a bunch of 7th gen games on the Switch, you would be the only system that would allow me to play all my favorite 7th gen games on the go. The Switch is powerful enough to do that. That's a selling point for me. That's what I wanted from the Vita. The Switch can do that. That would get me on board. So do that, Nintendo, along with your exclusives. So that's my recommendation for Nintendo. I will do a post E3 video and review all the conferences as usual. Until then, this is Mike. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you after the E3 conferences. Bye.